Oh, okay. Hi, guys. This is Rebecca.
Hello, can you hear us in Knoxville?
I can.
Okay, are we clear?
Yes, you are. I see the
Good.
puppies too. That's the most important part.
Right?
All right, I'll talk to you later. Thank you, bye. They look very calm and relaxed.
Yeah, the Glory will do just fine, but the white one over here may be a different story. We'll see how long he sits like that for.
Play video for just a second. I hate seeing myself on video. Oh,
I'm sorry, come here.
oh.
Okay, it's okay. Open your tail.
Rollers are a dangerous thing.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You guys got 2 weeks to go.
Is that okay? So I was curious, was it April or May? I couldn't remember.
It's April, yep, and I think that your chief is gonna go up for us and get all 4. We ordered 4 dogs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely exploding. It's really cool to see, so.
That's awesome though. How great.
Yes, yep, we're excited.
So who gets the 4 dogs?
So officially, you've got Newton Fire. They're almost done getting final approval, but they're essentially got 1 dog, possibly 2, going into play. Both Captain Steve Ashing is on here. He's a captain of Newton Fire. He's got one of the dogs. And then potentially their other captain, Ryan Bogue, is going to have a puppy, which is, we're not quite sure if that's going to go through or not yet.
Okay.
Then you've got you guys. We got Pella Ambulance.
Okay.
Got the final approval from the city. And then we got Pleasant Hill. I can't really announce them officially yet because we're not sure. Everybody's saying yes to, but they haven't voted on it yet, so we're not 100% sure if they're going to go through. There's still a chance that they may not, but we'll see. We have good high hopes for that. So.
Ah, no kidding. Oh, that's exciting. That's really cool.
So what, is there an email attached to that account, Chief, by chance?
No.
There's not, okay.
Um,
I have a slide, I'll do it up here. I'll do my slideshow up here and then I'll just talk about it.
we could put it on a flash drive and put it onto that computer, but unless you want to log into this computer, that's.
I think so. I think you got a flash. Is there a flash drive? Oh, right there is one.
No, those are the, let me grab one from Sam.
All right, I got 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes that were sent out a couple months ago? All right, hearing none. So Justin Smith, I'll let you guys introduce who you've got there. We can see your PowerPoint here, so that looks good.
Thank you. And even though we talk through Knoxville, you can still see my slides, right? It's not going to move me around.
All I see right now is a big picture of Glory that says
Awesome.
Canines of the Midlands. So
Good deal. Well, I'm Battalion Chief Smith, Knoxville Fire Department, sitting here with my chief, Cal Wyman, over here at Knoxville. We kind of want to introduce you guys, Central Iowa, the canine program that we put into effect here in Knoxville, and it is quickly expanding through other departments, heading into the metro pretty rapidly. So kind of give you the idea of what the program is about is ultimately these dogs are therapy dogs with a crisis endorsement, right? So there's a lot of therapy dogs out there with the in civilian world, and people use these dogs all over the country. to help people cope with mental health, right? The military's been doing it for a long time. Other states like Ohio, California, Florida have had these programs in place for a long time. Here recently, it's about the last 10 years or so, they've been starting to pair these therapy dogs with first responders and give them what we call a crisis endorsement. So essentially these dogs kind of have a two-part job. One of the parts of the jobs, going out to Ohio where I got my final certification for Glory, is that they have these dogs deployed to the scenes very, very commonly. Say you have a bus rolls over, MCI incident, these dogs are right there when it happens, usually in a deputy's car. And they kind of help with the bystanders and the situations around the accident scenes or structure fires or whatever may have, where we have loss of life or destruction. And these dogs start working in with what first responders don't always do best in helping other people in the situation cope with what's happening. Ohio goes to the next level with it. They kind of, they put them in deputies' cars and they go to car accidents. They go to, I can tell you on my graduation day, it was just a picture to see how they were used. Is there was a deceased lady found by her 9-year-old in the morning when he woke up. And so instantly the dog that was helping us train our dogs on graduation day had to leave to go to the scene right then and there to help the kid cope with what was happening. So it really was cool for me to see how they use these dogs in these aspects. So how is that being used in Knoxville? That's a couple different ways. One is we all understand Knoxville, we work a 48-hour shift and we average about 7.2 911 calls a day. So that equals about 14 calls, which we all understand can get taxing sometimes. And mental health inside of our departments can be tricky to handle, right? And for years and years, we haven't chose to address it properly, in my opinion. And I can't speak for your guys' departments. I can only speak for the departments that I have been a part of. I've been on an incident debriefing team for quite some time, and I've seen how mental health directly affects our firefighters, EMS providers, law enforcement, and even ER nurses, right? Because we take our craziness into the ERs and we drop them off. Since then, we've kind of seen the need for these dogs and how they're used. We got a hold of, I approached the city of Knoxville and Chief Wyman here with the idea of maybe Knoxville, Iowa, putting a therapy dog into place to see if we could just another tool in the toolbox to help with mental health and maybe the citizens in the community of Knoxville, as we know we have some pretty high acuity calls down here. Our paramedics and firefighters stay very busy. So we figured just a tool that could kind of help them. Since then, we've seen this program ultimately explode in a couple different ways, right? We developed a nonprofit called Crisis Canines in the Midlands, where we wanted to help other fire departments around the state of Iowa have some of the same success that we're having with these dogs. And the reason for opening that nonprofit is essentially because we understand that funding can be tough, right? If I would have went to Chief Wyman and said, hey, Chief, I want to put a dog in place, and by the way, it's going to cost you $10,000. I bet you Chief it'd have been a few years out before we could have made it happen, or maybe not even happen because we don't have the funding sources to provide things like that quite yet in the fire industry. It's not a normal thing as in like police use. So the nonprofit is developed to help soften the load of the cost for other departments. We've kind of got that going and seen a lot of results and success and dealing with a lot of departments right now and potentially putting dogs in place clear across the state of Iowa. Glory is not only doing some amazing things with deployments. We're going to school drills, shooting drills. We've been going to a lot of mental health issues around the communities. We did some debriefings with her. And on top of that, for your departments, PR is huge, right? I can challenge the fact that if you go anywhere in Knoxville or maybe even Marion County right now, you're going to know that if you say Knoxville Fire Department, they're going to say Glory, which is also a huge success for Chief, right? Is that people know who we are. She helps us with PR in our department. And the most important part of this program to me is inside of our firehouse. Every employee in Knoxville has a special relationship with Glory. I can come in the front room at Knoxville and see Glory sitting with somebody else and then petting her and spending time. A couple of weeks back here, we had a pretty long day at Knoxville, and I walked around from the ambulance bay into the front room, and Glory was sitting on one of the firefighters' laps with her head rested next to his head on the chair together, and he was just petting her with his eyes closed. I can't tell you that was a huge situation or he was struggling, but I can say that that helps him cope with whatever he was just going through, right? And he would tell you that he loves being around Glory. So it was just a cool thing for me to see that this program is successful. I told Chief in the very beginning of this that, Chief, if we don't get any success out of deploying these dogs or PR, anything, but happen to help one firefighter in our firehouse deal with a bad call or a tough situation, or maybe even home life, we have a win, right? So yeah, I got some slides here to go through these real quick, talking about crisis canines in the Midlands. Right now, we essentially are so busy with Glory that we've had to put in place 2 other dogs. You can meet Canine Marshall. He's on the floor there next to Chief. He's the white dog. Marshall is a pretty amazing dog, come out of Ohio, and he has a brother named Max. Max is also at Knoxville Fire Department, so essentially we have 3 right now. And the idea behind that was we're getting so busy so fast, I can't keep up with the appointments and deployments that we have with Glory. So our other battalion chief Backus is going to have Max, and we're going to have Marshall in play here, and Glory is going to be used for training other dogs across the metro to be in the same field. So crisis canines in the Midlands. What is it for? What is a crisis response canine, right? Crisis response canine team, certified therapy dog with a crisis endorsement, which means only first responders badged with the fire department, police department can have these with the crisis endorsement dogs, okay? You have to be paired with a first responder. We use these dogs for peer support, incident debriefings, major traumatic incidents. We haven't had an incident yet with Glory that we've deployed her right to the scene. It's something really dynamic. Ultimately, she's only been certified for 3 months, fully certified, so able to deploy. And hopefully we never have to use her for that, but she's trained to do so. Grief, loss, and trauma, we understand that. Our firefighters sometimes will experience some of the same loss and trauma as families do, as we have to work on these patients, and we all understand that. I'm going to explain that to you. Law enforcement uses these same dogs a lot for victim and forensic interviews. So if you have, I've had county attorneys from both Jasper and Marion reach out to me and ask about the program and ask if these dogs can be used in questioning minors or incidences that involve sex trafficking or things like that, where these dogs can ultimately use to go under the stand in court and just kind of help soften the environment. They have huge success with that in Ohio as well. Medical facility visits. I try to take Glory to the local hospital here in Knoxville at least once a week. We do a lot with the nurses. The nurses all love seeing Glory. When we walk in the room, they all stop what they're doing, come running over and spend time with Glory, which is a win in my book with just helping break up the monotonous of medicine sometimes. School demonstration and drills. I would have never thought that that was part of our crisis response program in the beginning. Although I can see now EMA's really helped me a lot in the local area with understanding that Glory has deployed 10 times into local schools where we've had serious situations, loss of life happen, and she's been able to help talk to students about what's happened. So let me move this other thing here. I can't see anything. Standby one. There we go. Glory is trained and certified since 2002. So ultimately, Glory holds the highest certification for therapy with a crisis endorsement in the United States. Ultimately, you can't get higher certified than where she's at. She's both certified through the AKC and the therapy canines. I forgot the program name. I have to look it up for you. But KFD recruits in training, Golden Doors, Max and Marshall are both in Knoxville. Since then, we had some really cool news that, and a few that I can talk about and a few that I can't. We've ordered 4 dogs. 4 dogs are coming in the middle of April. Your own Rebecca Morris in Bondurant is getting a dog there to do the same kind of stuff. We also have Newton Fire, which is committed to Captain Ashing has a dog over there, and they're potentially talking about one of the new puppies as well. Greg Higginbotham with Pellet Ambulance is putting a dog in service. They voted on it, got the final okay. And that's all I can really disclose now, but there's a few other in the metro, also Iowa City area, that are putting dogs into play through the program. We have a huge public outreach demand. So I'm going to say that every day I'm getting emails and asked to go somewhere in the public, churches, schools, and whatnot about talking about the program. There's a huge need for more teams, right? And that's kind of what we're here today, is just to present to you guys. One is that we're here if you guys need incident debriefings or some kind of deployment with traumatic events. Gloria has some really cool training which we can get into deeper if we come out to your place. Essentially, she can help me identify people that are struggling and just kind of soften the environment. Whenever the dogs show up, if you've been around one of these dogs, you would quickly agree with me that they make a huge impact on what the situation is. So we need more teams around Iowa. Crisis Canines of the Midlands will essentially help walk through the process, both financially and with training, to get these dogs certified. What does it take? I can't see it again. Okay, candidate selection. So we have a team of doctors, veterinarians, and trainers out of Altoona that will help develop these dogs' temperaments to make sure that they're the right dog for the right fit. Canine Max and Marshall are bred for this. They're bred from a breeder in Ohio that only breeds dogs for first responders. So although they're a little more expensive, the temperaments are almost bulletproof. In fact, that they will be successful dogs. When you get into this training program, there's a high failure rate. So we got to make sure we have the right dog in the beginning to make sure they're going to get all the way through this program. Health, wellness, nutrition. If you decide to go down get involved in this program through Crisis Canines of the Midlands, a lot of your veterinary care is all provided for life of the dog. We have a discount feeding program through Purina. All your vaccinations and preventatives are given at no cost through the veterinary service as well. So essentially, we're trying to soften the load for your organizations to have one of these therapy dogs in-house in the firehouse. That's not going to cost you guys too much to keep going. There's a few costs that we have to talk about, like having health insurance for the dogs and things like that, but that's really not very substantial. Comprehensive training. Anna Childs through Canine Training out of Horse Kennels has been absolutely amazing for this program. We do all of our training through their organization there in Altoona. Essentially right now, the only place you can get the crisis endorsement training is through Columbus, Ohio. Franklin County Sheriff's Office is who does it. But next year, this time, we have some really great news, is that program is going to come here to Altoona to help certify these dogs in this class to be crisis response canines. So it'll be the first time outside of Ohio we'll have a class, and it's going to be right here in Altoona, Iowa for these dogs. Crisis Response Canine Academy. I was kind of just talking about that a second ago. Really the first and kind of the pioneer for this program is paired with Deputy Metz out of Franklin County Sheriff's Office. His name is Mattis, Canine Mattis, sorry. He's an absolutely amazing Labrador, and they spend their lives training other dogs around the country for the same stuff. So how does it look like? If you guys chose to go on this path in this program, what's it look like for you guys, right? It takes approximately a year and a half to get certified. First, we have to find you a new candidate. What's really cool is Iowa City right now, Johnson County Sheriff's Office is putting a dog in play, and one of their demands for us is to find them a rescue dog. So they want to pull a dog out of a rescue shelter and put it into play instead of us buying one. So then our doctors and trainers will help them find the right dog, so that when we go through this process and put a lot of time and effort into this dog that it's going to make it through it. And that comes down to what kind of temperament the dog is. The first week of classes is 8 weeks long. It's beginner's obedience class. Tonight is our last class for these new recruits that we got right now. For the beginner class, it takes 8 weeks. We're going to go right into 8 weeks of advanced obedience classes. Then we're going to go into more of a skilled 6-week therapy skills classes where we kind of start putting the dogs through environments to make sure that they are not going to react to any other situations negatively as they're not supposed to. Then we start having training visits. That means you got to start going to places, and our fire departments count. So as long as you take the dog to your work every day, we've got to document so many hours that the dogs are being deployed. You can go to nursing homes, hospitals, keep them at your FD for the day, whatever that may be, to get these dogs hours where they need to be so that AKC will certify these dogs. Then we go to a crisis response academy, which is going to be a 2-week program, about 80 hours of essentially putting these dogs in every environment we can to make them react negatively. We did a few things like landing helicopters, medical helicopters right next to them, and the rotor wash and the sounds were not to affect the dogs. They had to stay in a down position during that land, and they did great. And what we're trying to do is if one of these dogs freak out and get crazy and run off, then essentially they can be a therapy dog, but they just can't be a crisis response therapy dog in our program because we can't afford the opportunity for our first responder to be distracted because their dog can't handle the scene. The last thing we do is the therapy dog certification. You have to be at least 1 year old to get the certification. There's also, you have to have all the other trainings in line. So it's kind of like our EMS certifications. You have to have one to build to the next to get up to that final AKC certification mark. So how do we help with crisis canines? I kind of talked to you about that a little bit. It costs us on our nonprofit about $10,000 per dog to put these dogs into an environment, and we are actively fundraising to get these dogs paid for. We've already got these first 4 dogs purchased and through donations of people around the metro. And I can announce this, but Jay Elder has been a huge help in the metro dogs, essentially has assured us that any dog that wants to go into the metro area, he wants to help fund it. So if you are in the Polk County area and want to go down this road with your department, then please reach out. We can help you find funding pretty easily. We also, so when you be a part of the program, then we'll also ask you guys to help put us in front of people to help get some more donations to keep this program going so that these dogs essentially won't cost our departments anything. Coordination and facilitation of the entire training certification process. So we're all work together. We're going to make sure that if you go down this road, your department says, hey man, we want to put one of these dogs here in our department, that we're going to help you walk through this program all the way from the beginning to the end to make sure that it's you're not trying to guess and figure your way out through this. We want to make it as easy as possible to get these dogs into our first responders. And then we're also, from there on out, if you're a part of the program with Knoxville here, we're going to have quarterly refreshing trainings. We're going to get together in dogs around the metro area. We have also a couple over in, I need to mention, Iowa State Patrol DCI agent has one, Canine Matt. You guys probably seen him a lot if you follow ISP. Canine Matt is absolutely amazing, and it's kind of the reason why Glory got established. We met Matt, and kind of the history of it is that he did such a great job that it inspired us to get where we're at with Glory. So get together with all these dogs and continue training. It would be a huge part of keeping them certified. How do you get started? Contact us here, either Knoxville Fire Department, Marion County Sheriff's Office, or through the Crisis Canine email. You can get in contact with one of us and we can help start developing this program in your department if you would like. And you can also contact any of those potentially to deploy the dogs. If you guys have something traumatic happen in one of your metro cities, then please call Marion County Sheriff's Office and they can get to me right away, and we will deploy one of our dogs into your area to help deal with some of this stuff. Also, incident debriefings. If you guys have a debriefing team come in, we'd love to have Glory there to kind of help soften the environment as well, if you would allow. Here's a couple of things. We have an application process that we've had to develop. As you know, when we have some cool things like this happening, we have a lot of people also approaching us just wanting to kind of pilot this on their own. And our organization, Crisis Canines, will not go forward with this program without your chief's approval. We need to have chief on board and then he has to work with the city council to make sure that it's something that we can do before we start investing money and dollars into a dog for your area. There's also some legal stuff you have to worry about. We've found so far is that you can reach out to Steve Ashing if you want to about some stuff that they're going through just to make sure that it's appropriate for the cities. We found that putting these dogs with an exempt employee or a supervisor does help a lot with having to figure out pay and kind of how that works out. So also you can email Chief Wyman. He can kind of walk you through some of that stuff we've had to walk through here in Knoxville as well. So you can essentially have a dog at home as well. And if you do and you want to enter this program, if we can get a temperament test done and the temperament test come out well with these doctors, then we will also adopt your dog into our program and help start paying for veterinary care and training and all that thing as well. So if you have a dog that you see fit, instead of wanting to get a brand new dog like Marshall, then we can also go down that road. Mission is to work in sync with critical incident stress management teams, providing psychological first aid and peer support in times of stress, crisis, trauma, loss, or disaster. Here's some information how to get a hold of us. Again, Knoxville Fire Department is another place to reach out. Canine Glory is absolutely amazing. We definitely would love to come to your department if need us to be and do some either training or talks with your department. We can get in deeper with some of the stuff that we've experienced and what we went through. I can tell you that it's humbling to see how much response we're getting from this program, not only with us, but across the nation. GIMS, which you guys, Rebecca shared for us, posted an article of the dogs in their magazine, and it has exploded since then of different states around us wanting us to help them put dogs into place. Essentially where we're at with that right now, though, is we want to kind of to worry about central Iowa on out first and get things developed and in place and kind of help our state primarily, and then we can move out from there. So if you'd like us to come see you, please reach out. We appreciate you. And thanks, Rebecca, for letting us share.
Thank you guys very much. That's a lot of good information, and we're excited to have our dog. So Chief Cruder is the one that's actually going to have the dog for us here at Bondurant. And would you say he's going to go in 2 weeks to pick up the 4 dogs?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because Chief said that, hey, you want us to pick up a dog for you, Chief, or would you like? He said, I'd love to. Well, since then, we've having to pick up 4. So we'll see how his ride home is going to be after that.
I think that might be fun for about 5 minutes to sit in the car.
Don't tell him that yet, Rebecca, okay?
Yeah, I don't think I'll volunteer to go with him. Well, thank you guys very much. We'll share who, is it okay to share your email information and stuff like that when I send out the meeting minutes, just so people can contact you if they have any questions?
Yeah, please do. Yep, wherever they want to. We'd love to come out there and talk with them. So
Perfect. I appreciate that.
And just for the record, I like dogs better than I do people, so it'll be a great ride home.
How long of a drive is that?
What is it, about 7 hours, Chief?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. I think Chief Cal Wyman just said he'd go with you if you'd like him to.
I've already done that trip.
He's shaking his head no.
Well, thank you guys. I think I saw AJ on.
Yes, good morning.
Awesome. So AJ, if you want to go ahead and talk to us about the MCI plan.
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody. Rebecca, is it, am I able to share my screen or my?
Absolutely. Do I need to give you permission, or can you take over?
Let me see here. So far, so good. How's that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Well, again, good morning. Great to see and hear everybody this morning. Loved the canine presentation. I have a couple amateur labs at home that are my own personal therapy dogs in their own way. So look forward to seeing more about that program. To shift gears a little bit to MCI planning, many on this Zoom are keenly aware and probably have seen this before, but I know that there's several new names on the attendee list. So I don't want to breeze over anything that you might find important. I will try to be quick and summarize, but if there's questions or concerns, I don't want to, certainly don't want to ignore those. So please don't hesitate to let me know if there are still concerns on this. And really my job here has been to try to listen very carefully to a lot of discussions amongst you all with EMS, but also hospitals and communications, the presentations that were done by the guests at the MCI symposium back in, I believe that was January or February, were very informative as well. And I think you'll hopefully see that all the stuff we're talking about here should be consistent with all of those discussions. So I think it's been great opportunities to listen to a lot of your ideas and put those into what should be a document that just basically documents the activities that you all want to and need to do during an MCI. So the format has changed a little bit. I believe my opinion is it's much more simple. It's much more straightforward. There's not any fluff. It's just, boils it down to as simple as a one page. I consider this an executive summary of the MCI plan. It could also be sort of that quick checklist, to make sure that, okay, we find ourselves dealing with an MCI. What are kind of the big broad sequence of steps that we need to go through? And that would be listed here in objectives 1 through 11. You can see that they are linked to more detail with other parts of the document. So I'm just going to go through these quickly, but basically some of these are very sequential. Others are going to be happening, simultaneously. So I tried to do the best of aligning them in a time and priority order, all the way from just declaring the MCI, making sure that we have supporting interoperable communications, that we're utilizing a triage system when practical to do so, because there are some multiple victim active threat situations where the traditional triage systems may not be practical. That we'll continue to utilize our ambulance strike teams off of the Teams cards or equivalent. When I say Teams cards or equivalent, many communication centers, or I guess at least one has completed this, and others are in the process of moving their traditional hard copy or a file that has individual Teams cards listed into a running order within their CAD and automating that process. And all of those are fine. I think this strike team concept can be implemented through the old school way of doing business or the new sort of running order automated within CAD. So recognizes that. Through our active threat work group and the MCI discussions, just the importance of a staging area and a staging area manager that can receive and assign resources that may be coming in even unrequested. So huge importance on an effective staging area to stage not just ambulances, but potentially law enforcement, and as we'll talk here in a bit, EMS hospital liaisons. So the nuts and bolts of the MCI would be to distribute patients by their severity of injuries or illness to appropriate receiving facilities, whether that be our 2 trauma centers here in Des Moines or the metro area hospitals, and potentially even regional hospitals across central Iowa. There's just the information sharing and how we are communicating with each other about situational awareness information. So how many patients, what point are are we going through this process? And so kind of setting up some benchmarks about every 10 minutes, I think, is what we've agreed to share information through incident command up to the primary dispatch center, then to CMed, and we can talk about some of these details here in a moment, but then CMed being able to communicate back out to all the hospitals. So we have situational awareness that is being shared back and forth two-way between hospitals and the scene or incident command. The EMS hospital liaisons has been probably the biggest and newest addition to the MCI plan since the last iteration. So that's something I want to, keep talking with all of you about and make sure that I'm capturing something that will, number one, will work and is valuable. So that's a big piece. And then just to recognize that at some point, the operations will come to a close and there will be some demobilizing, but we've had some problems in the past where the MCI has been considered completed at the scene, and that gets confusing because we still have patient dispositions at hospitals and patient tracking, and there's a lot of other stuff that's still going on once the responders at the scene have wrapped up their piece. And so recognizing when are we truly going to consider the incident closed and demobilized. So if that sounds okay with all of you, I will just step through these, hopefully not take too much time, but Rebecca and others, let me know if I'm going into the weeds too much or not enough, so I'm make sure I'm meeting your expectations here. On the declaration of the MCI, this may seem pretty straightforward, but there's been some debate, and I think the result of that debate has said that the MCI, its formal declaration of an MCI will be a part of that scene size up by initial responding units, and as incident command becomes established at the scene, that's the official declaration of the MCI, which causes a lot of other things to go into place. So it's number one, it's important. But the other part was that we should recognize and utilize information that is available to us, even though we might not have somebody on scene yet. So if there's a number of reports that are valid or appear to be valid that are coming into our communication centers, that we should utilize that information and get some resources started, at least moving towards staging as early as possible. So it really doesn't make any sense not to use that information, but to recognize that the official declaration will be by the incident commander at the time that they're providing a size up at the scene. So I'll just stop at each point here and see if there are any major concerns about each of these individual objectives, and we can kind of circle back and talk about the overall plan at the end. But anything specific to declaring of the MCI? Hearing none, we'll move to objective 2, which is to support the incident using interoperable radio communications. This may be a bit confusing, and I recognize that, but when we talk about CMed, in the past probably 20 plus years, CMed has been a specific radio frequency. I think it's been on a VHF platform. And so as we move forward, I think that CMed really needs to transition to a talk group on the ISIX platform. Now, there's some things that need to happen with communication centers as well as hospitals to be able to receive that. So there's work to be done on this step. But to recognize CMed not as a radio frequency or a talk group, but CMed as a function. And that CMed function has historically been satisfied by the Polk County Communication Center, Polk County Sheriff's Office Communication Center. So that there is a primary dispatch center, and that primary dispatch center is whoever is the home communication center for whatever jurisdiction this incident is occurring. And so you may have a situation where the primary dispatch center, let's say, is in the city of Des Moines, that the city of Des Moines Police and Fire Dispatch is the primary dispatch center, but we still rely upon the Sheriff's Office Communication Center to function as the central medical dispatch, to be the hub to talk to the hospitals. Another situation would be that you have a jurisdiction whose primary dispatch center is the Sheriff's Office. They would be functioning, let's say Altoona, for example, that Altoona is where the site of the MCI is occurring. Well, they're using their home primary dispatch center as the sheriff's office, but there's also the sheriff's office functioning as CMED, talking to the hospitals. And then in this example, supporting dispatch centers would be Westcom, where potential resources would be coming from to fill out the resource request for maybe ambulance strike teams or the EMS hospital liaison strike teams. So any questions on primary CMED and supporting dispatch centers, because there's a lot of choreography that has to take place between them for sharing information and utilizing CMED for that, but also resources which would touch the primary and supporting dispatch centers.
AJ,
Yes, sir.
Rob Dennert.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning. I'm wondering that the CMED issue, the dichotomy between the functional CMED versus the channels CMED, if it would be good to call out the functional component as maybe Polk County CMED and the others as the CMED channels, just to help clarify that in the language.
Yeah, I'm open to all those ideas. So not my place to say yes or no, but seems worthy of making some designation like that. Others have any thoughts? Yeah, just making a note there, Rob. Thank you for sharing that. Objective 3 on the triage system, again, where practical and when practical to do so. I don't think that we completely throw out the triage process simply because of a possibility of a subset of a MCI, such as a multi-victim active shooter, active killer situation. So there is still, a operational benefit of doing triage, no matter what the cause of that incident is, but to recognize that in many cases, an active shooter, active killer situation, the traditional triage system may need to be adjusted. And this gives that flexibility to the incident commander, to that medical group or medical branch director to make those decisions as prudent based on the situation they're dealing with. In the actual conducting of triage, you all, many of you on this call are the subject matter experts there. So definitely leaning on your advice on how this appears in the plan. But I think this is the best balance of recognizing that there's still a need to do triage when possible, but it may look differently from one situation to the next.
Yeah, AJ, this is Brian Helland.
Yes, sir.
I agree. I think that it gives some flexibility that we maybe haven't looked at in the past. And what we've learned from the MCI symposium was other times when triage may not be effective or even possible were when the numbers get so large, like the tornado from Joplin. They wouldn't have had enough triage tags to try and use them, even if they did have them. The other thing I want to just comment on triage is there's some movement from some folks to switch away from the START triage, which is, START is easy. It used to be mandated by the state. There are some other triage programs out there that are evidence-based that may be a little bit better. It's really hard. Every one of them has pros and cons. Because everybody is really familiar with START, I don't think that it's, in this revision of the plan, I don't think that's what we want to tackle. That may be something for future, unless anybody's got some other information. But that's in the subcommittee meetings. It's been bantered around to look at some different ones, but I think tackling the hospital liaison piece and the other changes are probably enough for this revision.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it's, as my advice, and take it for what it's worth, but my advice is that any adjustment to a triage system be at least consistent amongst services here in Central Iowa. So when we get into almost by definition, the MCI and an active threat situation is going to require multiple jurisdictions, multiple services working in great harmony with each other. And if there are, islands of adoption of different triage systems, that may not, be the best situation. So again, my advice is tackle that whenever you all agree to tackle that. But whatever the solution is, if it can be consistent across the board, that's going to make things work better. You have a lot of great people that are going to make things work regardless. But I think just in terms of if we can design it from the beginning to be the best, is to have some uniformity between services. And that may not be, that's maybe not the highest priority right now. So Brian, what you said makes sense to me. Objective 4 is to request the appropriate number of ambulance strike teams. This is not necessarily new in terms of using a Teams card system. What I have recognized, though, is that many of the Teams cards are woefully out of date. And so I know there's a lot of competing priorities for everyone's time, but it is probably worthy of making a concerted effort amongst all services across Central Iowa to go in and either revalidate or update your Teams cards. And that's going to be necessary regardless, because of what we're going to talk about here with the EMS hospital liaisons as well. But this part is not necessarily new. It's just to utilize a Teams card or Teams card-like system for semi-automating or automating the dispatching of resources like ambulances. I was going to say something else here, and I'll have to come back to it when I think about it. Objective 5, establishing a staging area. Again, this should not be new. Hopefully, this is one of the more, I say it's the most basic. I mean, this is really a fundamental thing. And so just utilizing, I think, is the biggest piece here, in having somebody that is dedicated to being a staging area manager. I think in some of the smaller, less complex incidents, staging has been used effectively, and it hasn't required a person to actually be assigned a staging area manager position and say, hey, I need you to be in that location and organize the resources, rather than, I think, what we have sort of fallen back on, and this isn't always fair, but we found a way to make it work, is to utilize our dispatchers to do that. And they've done a great job with, but I think that with something of this scale and magnitude, when you look back at those examples of Joplin and Las Vegas and South Florida's MCI incidents, to put that on the backs of dispatchers is just a bad idea. Not because our dispatchers are not able to do it. It just is it's impossible to keep all of that together, and it distracts them from doing what their primary job is. And that's what I was going to say before about the strike teams, is that if those Teams cards or that CAD systems are not updated to reflect the running order and amounts of resources that you want as an incident commander on the scene, then it falls back to the dispatcher. And that's, again, we should not be doing that. So they've got a terribly important job, and we don't want to put that on the backs of our dispatchers, of just saying, find me 5 ambulances. We should be saying, this is a 3rd alarm or a 4th alarm. They should be able to, have the CAD then dispatch 3rd or 4th alarm resources, or to use a pre-identified running order identified in the traditional Teams cards to dispatch them. So again, let's utilize our dispatchers for what they're really good at and what they're for, and let's do our homework beforehand to identify the resources to put into that system for both Teams cards and for utilization of the staging area. There's been some back and forth over the years on patient distribution. So I just want to be very, very clear of where I understand we are landing on with the red patients, that they are divided evenly as closely down the middle as possible and sent to Mercy and to Unity Point Health at Iowa Methodist, excuse me. And so, if you have 20 patients, they're 10 and 10, pretty simple math, and get them moving towards those two trauma centers. The other part that should be mentioned for all of this is that, and this is a training and exercise issue, is that once we're into a declared MCI, and it doesn't matter whether it's a small MCI or a very large MCI, as soon as that MCI is declared, one of the things it does is avoids using the individual patient report being phoned in or radioed in to the hospitals by the transporting units. At this point, when we have an MCI, the information would be relayed from the transportation group supervisor on scene back through CIEMSD to the hospitals that Mercy, you're going to be receiving 10 red patients. Unity Point Methodist, you're going to be receiving 10 red patients. Rather than burden the individual transporting units or the hospitals trying to receive all these individual patient reports, which just is not, it's from what we've heard from the hospitals, and I know we have some reps on that can speak for themselves, but it's just really not all that valuable and just requires a lot of extra effort. So we are, through the declaration of an MCI, saying no individual units calling in patient reports. It's all done through the transportation group supervisor back through CIEMSD to the hospitals on X number of this color patients, ETA, so-and-so. So that same would hold true for yellow and green patients, but for the yellow patients, they're going to be divided as equally as possible to these 6 facilities. So if you have, let me do the easy math for me, like we have 60 yellow patients, each of these facilities should get 10 in a perfect world. Now, if there's 1 or 2 here and 1 or 2 there that push us off that number, that's just, that might happen, but not a huge deal. But try to be as balanced as possible in the distribution of yellow patients. As you see here, it also includes those 2 trauma centers. So Mercy One, Des Moines, and Unity Point Methodist would also be getting yellow. So that was another question that comes up frequently. And so the answer is yes, they're getting those red that are divided equally amongst the 2 trauma centers, but then they're also getting whatever their allocation of allocated yellow patients. Again, no patient reports. So we're avoiding making direct contact with the receiving facilities other than CIEMSD to the hospitals. The other part here, which is related back to our EMS hospital liaisons in all of red, yellow, and green patients, is that if the hospitals need to do some rebalancing of patients, or they have a significant number of self-reported walk-up patients that are not going through the, at the scene kind of functions, that any adjustments there should be made in coordination and in support of the command at the scene. And this is done through the EMS hospital liaison, which we'll talk about in a second. But any reallocation of patients, any request of additional resources, any notice of available resources that haven't been accounted for by the incident commander, all would occur through this EMS hospital liaison. The green patients, again, divided equally amongst the 6 receiving facilities listed here. Some of the nuances of the green patients is that there could be, a use of buses and vans to transport. So we would have, multiple patients being monitored, supervised under the medical care of an EMT or a paramedic on that bus or van. So we're not just sending a bus full of green patients that may have very minor injuries, but we can't just send them under the supervision of the bus driver, right? The bus driver has their job, and that's not to, there needs to be a continuation of care from the scene all the way to the receiving facility. Another bullet point here was that that there should not be multiple stops made. So we're not going to have a bus route that drops off 5 patients at this facility and the same bus then continues to another facility. We will, and it's not entirely clear to me whether this is, a legal responsibility or not, but the good news is that we should not, our resource limitation should not be buses and vans. If we're going to be transporting green patients to 6 facilities, then just request 6 vans or 6 buses, and emergency management can assist in doing that. We already have agreements with DART and Link Associates and HERDA to provide those buses. So there should not be a need to make multiple stops by a single bus. Let's just get multiple buses or multiple vans to do that and just avoid this whole EMTALA thing entirely. Again, no patient reports directly. If we can clear and remove all those minor non-injured patients as quickly as possible to allow focus on the yellow and red patients, again, that's an operational decision that you all will make at the scene. So not expecting any issues there, just an acknowledgement of that. And then again, any adjustment of resources inbound or outbound from any of the hospitals needs to be in coordination through the EMS hospital liaisons. And so there's these regular reports, and I think most of the dispatch centers, as soon as the MCI is declared, that there is some sort of reminder at the communications center that every 10 minutes that there should be an update that may need to be prompted by communication centers of incident command. But either way, trying to get regular updates so that everybody in this spectrum of supporting the incident or directly dealing with the incident is communicated with about where we're at in the process, ETAs, number of patients, those kinds of things would be very good updates through a conditions, actions, and needs report that most of you already have in part of your SOGs and SOPs. So should not be brand new, but just a reminder to do so. And so this brings us to the EMS hospital liaisons. As others have said, probably the biggest, newest addition to this version of the MCI plan is to utilize chief officers from jurisdictions and services that may not be directly involved, may not be the jurisdiction having authority over the MCI scene itself, but could provide some support by saying, hey, we need, let's say a strike team of EMS hospital liaisons of 7. That would give, again, a similar running order of each jurisdiction identifying several individuals deep or jurisdictions that would be contacted to be able to provide a EMS hospital liaison. And the reason I said 7 is sort of the base number in my mind, because it would provide an EMS hospital liaison, 1 at each of the 6 receiving facilities identified in the plan, as well as a lead EMS hospital liaison at the scene, which those 6 at the hospitals would have a designated point of contact then at the scene, and that lead EMS hospital liaison at the scene could be working, shoulder to shoulder with incident command or the medical branch director. And that'll make more sense maybe once we look at the organizational chart coming up. But their job would be, again, to make sure that there is situational awareness being shared, that any resource allocations are coordinated between the scene and the hospitals. And it also accounts for the self-reporting patients arriving at the hospital without going through the scene activities, the triage, or putting patients on hospitals out of a treatment zone at the scene. And then objective 11 is to recognize that we're not just going to say, hey, it's all over and done with and wrap up as soon as that last patient leaves the scene. There's still a lot of work that's being done by the hospitals and patient tracking, et cetera, that needs to be done. And one of the better examples of why that's necessary to recognize is the carbon monoxide incident that we had out at the Law Enforcement Academy a few years ago, that there was a great deal of patient tracking and just coordination that was being done under the overall umbrella of an MCI plan, but lasted hours and even a couple days afterwards until the last patient information was all exchanged with the people that needed it. In summary here, there's other situations and considerations and assumptions that we don't want to go unstated. And clearly the use of the incident command system under the National Incident Management System is going to be important. There's been a couple articles lately, even under CBS National News, about jurisdictions that did not utilize NIMS and ICS, and they're being scrutinized for that. So we don't want that to be us. We want to make sure that we're utilizing these systems because they give us the best chance of success. There's also acknowledgement that a medical or non-trauma MCI may be a little bit different, but let's not just have a completely separate system for dealing with this, that we can utilize the foundation established in this MCI plan, but make some adjustments where necessary for non-trauma related MCIs. And then there's several bullet points here under the active threat situation that, of what sets aside an active threat situation differently from a bus crash or plane crash or something similar. And that's that you may have just a lot of non-traditional transports to hospital. You may have self-reporting at hospitals, and in the EMS hospital liaison should cover most of those. But the other part is that the traditional triage may look a little bit different. So before I stop and listen to all of your concerns, just wanted to take a look at a couple things that were added since our last review of this. And hopefully this is helpful to kind of bring everything together. So this looks very complicated, and it's more complex than the single resource or 4 or 5 resource response. But regardless, there's going to be an incident commander. They can have this complement of command and general staff that the incident commander can request and assign as necessary. And so, there's these positions out here. I've kind of grayed out their box so that we recognize that they're still part of this. But in many cases, the incident commander and the operations section chief may be one and the same person. Again, all of these responsibilities fall to the incident commander until they make a delegation and an assignment to somebody else to do those parts of the job for him or her. So the operations section chief ultimately is responsible for all of this other stuff. They could also be responsible for other activities that may be going on a part of this, fire suppression or law enforcement, or I just put XYZ because, we just don't know and don't want to waste a lot of time and space talking about all of the potentials here. But just to recognize that there may be other things going on that the operations section chief and the incident commander still have responsibility for, but specific to the MCI, there's a medical branch director that can be assigned. And again, if the medical branch director is the same as the operations section chief and is the same as the incident commander, it just means that one person owns all of that. And that may be the case, or there may be a necessity to delegate this out this way. Here's the recognition of an EMS hospital liaison at the command post. Consider this sort of the lead liaison that reports directly either to the medical branch director or to any of their superior positions. but also has a chance to talk very closely with the staging area manager, because if there's resources that need to be moved around between hospitals and that has an impact on community resources expected to be brought into staging to deal with on-scene stuff, that needs to be carefully coordinated. But the structure underneath this EMS hospital liaison would include, maybe one or two, maybe they're the only two that are needed are at the two primary trauma centers. But that's determined by the medical branch director and their superior positions in order to say we need 1, 2, or maybe it's 14 EMS hospital liaisons to be to exaggerate it a little bit. But that would be the structure recommend to connect the EMS liaisons back to the scene because of this important relationship here. And then under the medical branch director, they also have responsibility for the 3, triage, treatment, and transport functions of an MCI. So this is pretty familiar stuff, I think, to most of you. This is recognizing that, the transportation group, we often talk about those ambulance strike teams. So this is pretty old hat. But under treatment, you may need additional ways to organize additional personnel that are doing triage, that are doing treatments, and again, the transportation. So this just recognizes that you have the option to utilize strike teams, to utilize, a task force would be sort of dissimilar resources coming together. Maybe that's doing the law enforcement and medical piece of the investigation together. I don't know, kind of stretching the list of possibilities here, but that I think was recognizing and adhering to the NIMS and ICS and leveraging a system that works well, a communication and command and control structure that kind of ties everything together. And then here's just definitions of those positions. The EMS hospital liaison position is probably the newest one. And I know that Chief Cardwell and others are working on a more detailed job aid that will go beyond just a definition and talk about what their duties and responsibilities would be. So I'll leave that for others to discuss, but thank you for your patience and letting me go through all of this. I think we're in a really good spot. I have a number of next steps that I'll put out there to this group. And so you don't have to write these down. I can send these to Rebecca, but here's the things I've identified as next step is sort of what Rob Dennert touched on is the CMed and ISICS transition, the way we refer to them, but also just the actual identification of an interoperable communications plan that can be a good start for the incident commander so that they don't have to create an interoperable communications plan from scratch while they're also dealing with this. I think if our communications professionals can say, here's what we'd recommend that supports what you need to do, and we identify that and put that a part of a annex to this plan that gives the communication centers and the incident commanders and everybody involved some expectation of, we can utilize these talk groups to carry out these functions, and that way the jurisdictions and services involved can make sure that they have those talk groups programmed, that they can do the training and exercises with their personnel to make sure that they can access those communications talk groups to support all of this. So that's number one, is the whole CMed transition to ISICS. The other part is the job aid and position descriptions that Chief Cardwell can talk about. The third thing is to make sure that our active threat work group, that we have a unified plan. I know the Polk County Fire Chiefs Association is doing some great work on an active threat work group, SOG, SOP, and that's wonderful. But because of the multidisciplinary overlap with law enforcement and others, the preference is to have a single unified active threat work group that says, here's what fire is doing, here's what EMS is doing, here's what communications is doing, and here's what law enforcement is doing. The fourth one is the EMS hospital liaisons, getting those Teams cards like running order getting all of that identified. So it requires each jurisdiction to say, if an MCI happens in your jurisdiction and you want to utilize, maybe 7 EMS hospital liaisons to cover the hospital and the command post, which 7 jurisdictions would you be calling upon or asking communications to call upon to get those liaisons either to staging or assigned to their locations? That needs to be identified, and certainly not EMA's place to tell Bondurant or anybody else who they should probably be using as an EMS hospital liaison. And again, that needs to probably go deeper than 7, because if you're calling 7 and only 5 are available, where are you making up the difference on those 2 additional? So X number deep. I'll let you all decide on how many you would recommend to each service to identify. Another piece is, okay, now what do we do with our neighboring counties? Dallas County, Jasper County, etc. If they have an MCI, how do they interface with us here in Polk County in Central Iowa, and how do we interface with them if we're going to support an MCI that occurs, in Colfax or in Madrid or whatever. So there's some regional effort that needs to be thought about. A pretty simple step is, once Central Iowa EMS directors gives me the green light, I can put this on the agenda for the Polk County Emergency Management Commission and get this plan formally adopted, which then I know that services are anxious to do the training and exercise on this plan. I don't know that the adoption of the plan should hold you up, but I know that there's concern like, will this change again, and what's the official adoption, so that we can plant a flag and move forward for training and exercise. And really that's the last piece, is to figure out as a group the best way to make sure that everybody from that rookie, the person that's been on the job for a week, has the same awareness of how all of this fits together as do the chief officers. So the training and exercise piece will be another important step. Okay, I've taken way more time than you probably wanted me to, but hopefully that level sets the information that we have at this point. Happy to take any questions or concerns, or others that have been working on the details of this to elaborate.
Dr. Sidwell had written in the comments, putting on his trauma surgeon hat, that he agrees and he likes the clarification that you gave with saying where the patients need to go and how to distribute them and everything like that, and that the hospitals do have plans in place for the patients that arrive by private car. So they are thinking about that as well.
Excellent.
Hey, Jay, Rob Denner.
Yes, sir, Rob.
A couple things that I didn't notice or hear about, and wondering if there should be. I'm not necessarily advocating for either one, but one is Pulsera. Does it have a place in the MCI plan? I'm not even sure about their capabilities. That maybe, I don't know. I'll leave that to a Pulsera expert. We're using it every day. Is it a natural use, or are there even capabilities in that for an MCI? Don't know. Thought. And the other one is EM Resource. That is it still in play? I know we still have the hospital status board up in dispatch. There are some capabilities within that system for MCIs and bed counts and declaring an MCI in there. Just wondering if there's any value there.
Two excellent points. And by talking first, I make no claim to be a Pulsera expert, but we did have a conversation around that with, I would say, a few dozen people several weeks ago. And the results of that conversation is that Pulsera is a great tool. It should be used by as many people as possible for their benefit every day, but that it probably was not the best fit at this point within the MCI structure for a number of reasons. But one of the main reasons is that not everybody is on it, and that the hospitals would not necessarily be in a position to really fully utilize the information that would be coming in to Pulsera in the context of an MCI plan. So others can carry that out further, but we did talk about that, and the last answer I knew of was that no, Pulsera was going to be not utilized for the MCI plan. And on EM Resource, I think you're right, Rob, there's a lot of capabilities within EM Resource, but almost all of them require input in a couple different ways. Input by the hospitals, but actually just logistically finding somebody to put information in real time while something's going down so that bed counts are accurate and timely. Right now, I think that EM Resource is being used, when I say routinely, it may be like once a day or a couple times a day or once a week. It's not utilized on a minute to minute or hour to hour basis to really be high resolution enough for the decisions to be made in an MCI. So any others want to provide feedback on Pulsera or EM Resource?
This is Franny. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, I can.
Okay. I would just say with EM Resource, it's not even used daily right now. And unless there's pretty much a state mandate, the hospitals don't have the capabilities to get in there and change the information. And sometimes it can be complicated for them to extrapolate all the information. I know that there have been talks of getting it automated, but that process is still going to take some time if it actually even occurs within this system. And I believe the state is also looking at other systems in the future. So I don't know that EM Resource would be beneficial for this plan.
One more thing. And I'm fine with both those answers. I wasn't necessarily advocating for either one. I just know that I didn't hear those mentioned.
Yep.
The last thing I'll mention, there is an effort underway at the ISICS level to develop a statewide TICP, Tactical Interoperable Communications Plan. I know we're working on one here in the Metro, a more RICP, a Regional Interoperable Communications Plan that I think at least when those mature a little more, by reference probably, those would be good references in the MCI plan.
Perfect. Yep, that makes sense. I like that.
All right, does anybody have any more questions for AJ? Okay, so yeah, AJ, if you just want to send me that stuff and we'll send it out with the meeting minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So the next thing I have is that, let me share. That I've had some people reach out saying that they didn't love the Monday time slot, even though we've gone to days, just because that's when they have their chiefs meetings or crew meetings or anything like that, or just trying to catch up from the weekend. So I will send a survey out in the next week or so to see what day works for everybody. We'll go with the majority rules. We're still going to go with the 10 o'clock time. But if majority of the people want to move it to a different date, we will definitely look at that. So I'll let you know what that comes back as. So be watching for that. David is not on, but he said he did not have any updates on Pulsera. Franny, MCC.
Yeah, just quick update. We're still meeting monthly, basically for information sharing right now. Next month, we're going to be discussing a little bit of things in regards to questions on the public health emergency proclamation expiring. And then I'm also working on the preparation of the transition from EMA hiring the resiliency coordinator, which will be assuming my position, the leadership role of the MCC. And then also helping EMA prepare for the Polk County Healthcare Coalition position. So pretty excited to get that started. I know EMS will play a big role in that as well. And that's about it for MCC. So unless you have any questions, I'll roll into the treasurer's report. Okay. We have $15,824.85 in checking. We have $7,192.44 in savings. And I have $16,711.50 in PayPal, which I'll be rolling over into our checking account shortly, sometime this week. And then I will be seeking reimbursement from the state EMS grant for some of the funding for the refresher. Any questions on that? All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Franny. Chief Cardwell, I think I saw you on there. Update on training.
Yep, I'm here. So welcome, everybody. Just to follow up on the MCI training plan is that once the final plan is adopted, the training committee will have a rollout plan for a graduated training plan for individual organizations to work at all their different levels with regard to refreshing the plan with everybody in your department, including MC or IMS and triage operations. Then we'll build it into some tabletops regionally so we can play the different pieces working together before we work towards a full field exercise. Will be different than the airport exercise, but we'll have to kind of work our way there. It'll likely take the better part of a year to get through all the different components, but then at the end, all the key players should be familiar with how the program works and how all the pieces fit together again. So just to let you know that that's coming. If you'd like to mark your calendars for next year, the refresher dates will be February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I know we're a little bit out there, but a lot of people do look forward to the refresher. We get typically 100 people there. So if you want to put that on your save the dates. As far as training initiatives we've got going right now, the difficult airway classes, really a terrific class. Enrollments are picking up. So if you've got people in your department you'd like to get into the difficult airway, the next classes are May 18th and 19th and August 9th and 10th. Go to the CIEMSD website and there's the link that you can get signed up. There is a limited number of enrollees because it's very hands-on. So make sure you get everybody going there. The hand-heavy provider class is now available for rollout. We won't be scheduling area sessions or regional sessions, but it is going to be available department by department. It's a 6-hour class and we've got an instructor cadre that is ready to go. We've used the funds provided to purchase mannequins and training kits, and we can bring it to your department. So if you're interested in that, you can email me or just click on through the hand-heavy part there on the website, and we'll see about getting that program out to you. The AHA Mission Lifeline is sponsoring stroke training that builds on all the data we've collected from the STEMI and stroke site. I know Brian is going to talk about that a little bit more, but if that again is something that you're interested in having Brian come into your department and deliver we just had him here, an excellent presentation on the most recent data and how the stroke teams are using that, especially in EMS, that would be a great idea. So that's pretty much all that's going on in the training committee world.
Great, thanks. And Brian, I saw you, so you want to talk about STEMI and stroke?
Sure. We've got the next STEMI and stroke task force meeting will be on April 20th. We're meeting on the 3rd Thursday of every other month. It's a Zoom meeting, so we'll have the link. Will be in the minutes that get sent out, and we'll probably have it on the website as well. So anybody that wants to join, it's an open meeting. Specifically, we're looking at some of the projects right now are the use of ECMO. Dr. Wilcox has been working diligently to get an ECMO response within the Mercy One system. Unity Point also had an ECMO response, and they have a physician that's heading that up over there as well, Dr. Dodge, I believe it is. And but they had a change in their program and their leadership of their program, so they're playing catch up just a little bit. And Dr. Wilcox is ready to get this rolled out for us for EMS. And so we're looking at the details of that, and that'll be we'll talk a little bit about that in the next meeting as well. Other than that, just to piggyback onto what Chief Cardwell said with the STEMI and stroke, or I'm sorry, the stroke education, is that there's been some changes in the metro area with certification levels of the hospitals, and congratulations to Mercy One, who is now Joint Commission certified as a thrombectomy center. Which means the mechanical thrombectomy that they've been doing for large vessel occlusions is now up and running 24/7, and they are Joint Commission accredited to be able to do that, which is awesome. Unity Point's been doing a great job of, if they have somebody that meets large vessel occlusion criteria, they're getting them transferred over to Mercy as quickly as possible. And the education piece that Mission Lifeline is putting forward talks about where the data behind that comes from, why we're making changes, and then how does that affect us in the EMS world with, can we recognize those large vessel occlusions in the field and then get the patients routed correctly? And that's what that education is surrounding. So if you're interested in that, give me a holler. You can send me an email. You should be able to connect through the Central Iowa EMS website to me as well. But be interested to come out and share the information as that's coming out from Hart. And I think that's all that I've got on that.
Great, thank you. I don't think I saw Jay. So pharmacy committee, we're still working on this. It's been a slow process. We've got Brian, oh, I forgot his last name. Brian with Unity Point, who's a pharmacist, has been very helpful and working with Raylon. Raylon is on a 3 or 4 month cruise of the world. So kind of trying to pick up where she's left off. Our biggest problem that we're having now is how we're going to be tracking and keeping records of the drugs and stuff like that. So we've been talking with Brian about Vendovations, and he's got some ideas too. So I think the next step that we will have is just have a meeting with them to figure out which of the programs would be better. So still working on it. It's just a slow process, but we haven't forgotten about it. So Lynn.
Good morning. I'm Lynn with the Central Iowa Healthcare Coalition. I just have a handful of updates. So last Thursday, we hosted radiation training by Summit Education and Training, and that training was recorded. And we were able to edit it down to about 2 hours. And the link was sent to the EMS directors in my weekly email this morning. So if you want that, they have it. Steve Anetta with Iowa HHS is doing a virtual training this Wednesday night at 6 for EMS Coalition members. His training's titled The Top 5 Reauthorization Issues in Iowa, and I will put the link to register for that in the chat. The EMS System Standards Grant requires each county and the coalition to develop an EMS action plan, and that's progressing relatively well across the coalition. There's 3 parts to developing it: the assessment, the stakeholder meeting, and then that final action plan written up. In Polk County, the assessment was completed in the fall. The stakeholder meeting was done in January, and then you all have your final action plan decision that was made. And that was to work on developing a robust EMS physician medical group. And I've seen a few other counties within our coalition choose to work on that. I've also seen some EMS advisory committee development, and then one county chose an activity around EMD. And then this morning I sent out my weekly email with a lot of the details of what I just talked about, including some of the impacts to the public health emergency declaration ending. So if you want added to my update email, you can just send me your email in the chat and I will send that out. It typically comes out Monday mornings. So that's all I have, unless there's questions.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Communication centers, Rob, I know you are on.
Westcom's pleased to announce we have a new chief. He started last Monday, a week ago. Udell Mentola is his name. Most recently comes to us from Saudi Arabia, where he's been working for the past 7 years. Hails from Missouri, though. We welcomed him and anxious for him to hit the ground running here.
All right. Thanks. The Polk County Chiefs Association report. I was not there because I was on vacation, but I know Chief Cardwell. Was there anything that needs to be updated?
Nothing really that I had, other than I have talked to Chief or emailed with Chief Clark regarding making sure that some of the MCI stuff that AJ was talking to, making sure that all that is, if not necessarily integrated, at least all lined up so that we move smoothly between the different programs. So.
All right, thank you. IEMSA, Katie?
And good morning. So a little bit on IEMSA, we just had a meeting recently and Gary Merrill from the Bureau came on and gave a very nice report on all the data and yearly stats and kind of where EMS is in the state and the, all those statistical charts about the age of providers and location of providers and services. So they are, according to Margot, planning on how to disseminate that information, and it does give us some pretty significant information on our workforce, and no huge surprises there, but it was kind of interesting to see it all in print. As far as lobbyist issues go, Mark McCulloch reported that overall the year's legislative sessions have been interesting, but so many controversial issues that have maybe taken the attention and time from other issues, so that nothing really has a huge impact on EMS. End of session is scheduled for the April 28th. And the one thing we are trying to work on is developing some additional ways so that options for services that are not able to currently use the GEMT dollars and reimbursements, we're trying to find ways that those services will be able to get some kind of relief. They are putting together some options, and we've hired the lady who helped us with the original GEMT to start working and developing a plan, and she's working with Rebecca Curtis. They are trying to determine if there's a way to feasibly expand the GEMT without legislative language. So just know that there's some things going on in the background, and that's kind of going to be an interesting topic to continue to watch. Let's see, some things on the schedule that your services may be interested in. There is the Public Safety Boot Camp is scheduled for April 26th and 27th this year at Hilton Garden Inn in West Des Moines. That would be on the IEMSA website if you have interest in sending any personnel to that. Billing and Management Conference is in August. That's with PWW and Doug Wolfberg. So that's in August. And let me see. One interesting thing that IEMSA is kind of looking into is just the issue that we have with the need for some type of community paramedicine or mobile health. Andy Nye, who's the president of IEMSA now, is having a virtual meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th with a company called Tele 911. And just kind of starting to look at some of the other systems that are out there that in the future may be able to help some of these services with virtual triage in the field and that type of thing. So I do have a Zoom link for that. If anybody is interested in joining that Zoom, please let me know and I can send you out the link. And that is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th at 10 a.m. a Zoom meeting with IEMSA and the Tele 911 company. And that's it for me for IEMSA.
Great, thank you. AJ, any more updates on Polk County emergency management?
No, I'm taking up a lot of your time today. I just mentioned that we have the open position for training and exercise that we have made an initial offer. So we're getting close to having that position filled. And then Franny mentioned that our resiliency coordinator, which will be more involved with the healthcare coalition, both at the regional and Polk County levels and the MCC, that position will be open at the beginning of the next fiscal year when our funding starts for that position. So that's all I can think of.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. Nobody from Polk County medical examiners. Any other reports from any other members or hospitals or counties? Any announcements to share? Everybody's hiring.
Rebecca, I do have a comment, sorry. Many of you received notifications from me about positive COVID patients that you have brought into the Unity Point emergency departments. And over the past month, we've been working on putting out a new system. Still some glitches in it, but eventually we will be going away from me doing the manual notifications and you'll be getting those emails. I think most of you should have received the email about setting up a password for the confidential Move It system. And within that system, you will have files. And in the files, if you've brought anybody in that was positive, those patients will be identified. That email, the ideal, what we're planning is that email will be sent out to you every 48 hours and you can log in and see if you brought in anybody who's been positive. But right now I'm still working on it and IT is working on it. So until the system is fine-tuned, you'll still get emails from me, but I'll let you guys know when we're up and running and that my emails will stop coming. Thanks for your patience on that.
Thanks. And then Katie, in the chat, there was somebody that wanted the link for the April 11th.
Oh, very good. I'll type that in right now. Hopefully it's not too long.
If not, I'll add it to the meeting
I think
minutes.
I can do it. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, if anybody has any suggestions on guests or topics that they would like to see for the upcoming meetings, please let me know. Next meeting is scheduled for May 22nd at 10 a.m. unless we choose to do something different. So again, be watching. I'll let you know if that changes and then we'll notify you. Still planning on meeting by Zoom. And I think that's all I got. Anybody have any other comments or questions? All right, well, be safe. Thanks.